Hello guys, it's Kristen and welcome back to my channel. So tonight I'm going to be showing you guys how I make my soilless potting soil, and I usually make it out of cocoa coir, cocoa, croutons, orchid bark, activated charcoal, perlite, and worm castings. I actually kind of took inspiration from Harley G's soilless plant mix, and I also have like a screenshot from Google that I found just by Googling aroid mix, because a lot of my plants are aroids and some aren't, but I just kind of keep all of my plants in the same kind of soil, except for my succulents. I'll add in more perlite so that it'll be a little bit drier for them. But without further ado, let's make some soil. So I just keep it in this little tub. This is a 20-gallon tub from Walmart, and it has the blue ring in it to make sure that moisture stays in / things stay out. I haven't had a problem with things getting moldy in the past, but you never know. So normally I get the compressed cocoa coir bricks from my local plant. Pretty much everything is from my local plant store except for the activated charcoal, the orchid bark, and the perlite. So I mean, I guess half of it is from my local store. So these you have to wet with water so that they expand, and I use fertilized water to do that. On the instructions it says to, I think it's like 1.5 gallons you're supposed to use, but yeah, so 1.5 gallons to 1 3/4 gallons. So I know that 1 3/4 gallons is way too much, because the first time I made this, like, I had so much leftover water that it was a waste of fertilized water, which I just use filtered water. And then the Miracle Grow, it's the yellow bottle with the green top for all use plants. So this is about 48 ounces of water that I'm going to put in here. So I'm going to let this soak for a little bit and add more water if I need to. I probably will, because 48 ounces is not quite near 1 gallon. So I'll go ahead and I will let this soak, and after it's done soaking, I'll come back and I'll show you how I put everything in. Alrighty, so I just finished letting this soak up some water. I used about 176 ounces, which is a little bit less than 1.5 gallons. 1.5 gallons I think is 192. But there's still some water rolling around here in the bottom, and I made sure that everything was fully incorporated. I made sure to get my hands in there and turn everything over to make sure nothing was dry, so everything's still pretty wet. So I just kind of eyeball what looks like about 1/3 of how much cocoa coir I put in here. I really don't use as many cocoa croutons as I should, but I'm not really that worried about it, because really they're in there just to make sure that like more oxygen can get in, and they help soak up some of the water too to help keep things moist, but also make sure that things can dry out. So I just kind of eyeball everything. And actually, if you guys want a tip, instead of buying like big bags of like orchid bark from your garden center or like your local plant shop, you can actually just buy reptile bark, and it's basically the same thing. I mean, double check the reptile bark that you're buying, but it's basically the same thing. This acts like the cocoa coir chunks, where it just helps make sure that things are getting aerated and gives a little bit of moisture back to the soil. And then here, this is activated charcoal. I I can't remember if I got this from Walmart or if I got it from Home Depot, because I think I went to Lowe's and they did not have it when I originally went. So this just helps with mold in your plants. But another good thing to do if you find that like the top of your soil is getting moldy, if you like take off the first layer of dirt and you use cinnamon, that helps with the mold. I don't know why it works. I think it probably is because cinnamon has antimicrobial properties, but my aunt likes to do that with all of her plants. And I did it with my alocasia poly that I had, and it worked really well. And then perlite helps dry out the soil so it makes sure that things aren't staying super dry. So this mix overall gives a pretty good airy mixture that it'll stay moist, but it won't retain so much moisture that you get root rot, or if you're like my boyfriend and overwater your plants a ton and the soil turns into like really disgusting, like almost like brownie mix soil. I repotted a pothos that he had. He got it from his mom, and who knows how long that had been in the same soil. And like his plants were starting to die. Like he had this big beautiful pothos and it just started to rot. Well, I thought it was rotting because all the leaves were turning yellow and like dying off, and he was way overwatering it. And it's also kind of in a corner of his house that like doesn't receive much light, like not even a lot of like overhead lighting, like fluorescent lighting, it doesn't get a lot of. And I finally decided that now like that only half of the plant was alive, I decided to repot it the one night for him to try and save it. And I don't think I've ever touched grosser dirt in my life because it was just like thick and sludgy and super gross. So now that everything is all mixed up and good to go, I would say this is probably like, apparently I didn't mix it up enough on this side, but I would say this is probably like 3/4 of the way full. And honestly, this will probably last someone who doesn't have a lot of plants a good while. I've made 3 batches of this now, and I think my first batch I made was in April. But a lot of the plants that I've bought in the last year like immediately needed to be repotted after I got them acclimated to their environment, because like the roots were poking out of the bottom of the pots. And the area I live in, we have a lot of chemicals in our water and a lot of minerals, even after I filter it. So I think my goal is to try and change all of my potting soil like once a year. Like maybe not up pot my plants, but just make sure that they have fresh soil every year, because I just want them to have nice soil so that they grow nice and big and beautiful. And I just realized that I did not put in any worm castings. So worm castings are kind of a slow release fertilizer. So I like to use them in combination with the fertilized water to help make sure that my plants are getting nutrients all year round. Now that we're getting here into like the fall time, it's not such a big deal, but I just like to make sure that my plants are being fed. And all of my plants that I have in this soil seem to be very happy. I don't think I've had any problems with any of my soil actually since switching over to this. And I also forgot to mention that I've also gotten a lot of free clippings from my local buy, sell, and trade sites, And one of the plant shops in town that I go to, they frequently give away free cuttings with every purchase, which is like super nice because who doesn't love free plants? So honestly, I've probably potted upwards of 30 plants with the 3 things of soil that I've made in the last year, and I think the total of everything came out to about like $70, which I don't know the price of like 20 quarts of plant soil would cost, but I'm pretty sure it would probably cost more than $70. So now that this is all done, I'm going to take a quick snapshot to show you guys what it looks like, and then I will show you guys me using it, because I actually have 3 cuttings that need to get planted because they finally have roots. So I will show you guys that in the next video. Bye!